How we doing, folks? This is John with Prepper Nation. Let's talk about bunkering in. A lot of preppers call this sheltering in place, but I call it bunkering in. And let me explain to you why. When I think about sheltering in place, whether it's in the city, whether it's in a rural area, wherever the case may be, I'm thinking doomsday bunker, right? So in other words, if you live in an apartment, let's say in downtown Atlanta, okay, and it has hit the fan, you know what I'm saying? You've got looters, you've got shooting in the streets, just total chaos. The idea and the concept, for me at least, is you want to be able to go inside your apartment and bunker in to the point where no one can get to you and you can ride it out. Now, maybe you guys are privileged enough out there to actually have an underground doomsday bunker. I need to do a video on those, by the way. I do not have one. I can't afford one. Most normal people cannot. But the concept remains the same. With a doomsday bunker, you want an incredibly strong point of entry, which would be the front door of the bunker, the front door of your apartment, the front door of anything, basically, right? And then you want to be able to go inside and ride out whatever shift event is going on. And so what I do personally, and what I recommend that you folks do right now, you can even pause the video if you want. Get a notebook, right? And I want you to ask yourself this question. Some of you are single, some of you are elderly, some of you have incredibly large families, pets. I get it. But what if you had to go inside of a doomsday bunker for 90 days and you could only bring with you the things you could list on a piece of paper? One item per line. What would you bring? That's the best way to figure out what you are going to need. And I'm going to go over my personal list, and I'm going to explain to you why these things are on there. But the thing to remember is everybody's list is going to look a little bit different because we all have different needs and things like that. So the first thing I'm thinking is 90 days food and 90 days water. Now, if you're unsure of what kind of food or water, how much water you need, go back on this playlist, the beginning prepper playlist, and you will find specific videos for food and also for water. But you're going to need 90 days of each. And the reason for this is you can ride out most catastrophes, most shift events when it has really hit the fan. Usually it's going to be said and done within 90 days. Okay, this is a tornado, this is a hurricane, this is civil unrest. I mean, if people are out in the street shooting each other and setting cars on fire, you want to be able to bunker in for 90 days. So you need the food and the water. Those are the two most vital things, right? And I understand in an apartment setting, for example, you're limited on space, but you just need to be smart on what you prep. If space is a huge concern, you can prep heavy on, for example, freeze-dried foods that come in the foil pouches or the buckets. However, if you live on a farmhouse and you have 10 acres of land, you probably have a lot more of room to prep with. So just prep accordingly. The next thing on my list is going to be a portable solar generator. These things normally run anywhere from $80 to $300. On Amazon, you can pick them up on eBay brand new. And what they look like, I wish I had one nearby. They just look like, showing my age here, folks, they look kind of like a Trapper Keeper or something like that, notebook that opens up and it has solar panels inside. and then you can attach a cord to a small generator unit. And this generator unit is not going to run a refrigerator or stove or anything like that. It's going to handle smaller devices like, cell phones, MP3 players, things like that. And with that, I would also suggest getting a rechargeable battery kit. You know what I'm saying? Like AA and AAA, because these are going to run things like flashlights and portable radios. And so when the batteries go dead, rather than stocking up 100 packs of Duracells, right now you can charge the batteries up with the generator, the solar generator, assuming you have windows on your apartment or your house, which hopefully you have at least one, right? The next thing that I'm thinking about is medical. I would suggest buying a decent pre-made, and you can buy these at your local retail store. A good one though, you don't want to cheap out too much here. A decent pre-made medical kit that's going to, it's going to give you all of the basics from, Band-Aids to gauze to Neosporin, things like this. And then on top of this medical kit, I would have at least 90 days worth of over-the-counter medicines. Things like Pepto-Bismol, Tylenol, maybe some toothache medicine. In the South, we use moonshine for that, by the way. But over-the-counter medicines and, a decent first aid kit. And enough so that you can ride out 90 days. Now, a lot of people are probably out there like, man, I'm not staying in my apartment for 90 days. That's never going to happen. And the people in Seattle who were trapped basically in remember Chaz and Chop, the whole autonomous zone? There were people there that were trapped. The police would not come in and help them. They were basically excommunicated from the United States. So if this were to happen, you could ride out an event like that and keep yourself safe. Light. So again, flashlights we're going to charge with the batteries. You know what I'm saying? You want the rechargeable batteries. Also have a lot of candles on hand. We actually, I'm not going to dig it out, but we have an ammo can that is filled with nothing but emergency candles. And so if the power goes out, that immediately comes out. And there's a entire pack of like Bic lighters in there as well. Something else you want to think about is light pollution, okay? Especially in an urban setting. If you're in an apartment complex or a complex of like an area of townhouses, you want to think about light pollution. Once it gets dark outside, you do not want people to know that somebody's at home. Because what's going to happen is the unprepared are going to start to get desperate after a couple of days. Once they've hit all their convenience stores and they've robbed pretty much every store and looted everything they possibly can, now what? Right? Now they're looking for their next meal, and they're walking down the street and everything's dark, and all of a sudden they see your lights on. So in this particular case, I'm going to suggest two things. Both of them are fairly cheap. Number one, you want to get the blackout drapes at your local Walmart. And we have these. These things are awesome. They cost about $15 per window. But they pretty much last forever, and they block out almost every bit of light. We'll have the living room lights on at night, and I'll go outside to walk the dog, and you can't even tell anybody's home. On top of this, I would also suggest, for multiple uses, getting a box of black contractor trash bags. And now what you can do is you can duct tape these over the windows and then put the drapes up. Now, you're not going to duct tape them in everyday life, But if a shift situation were to happen, during the day you can duct tape these bags up, and then at night, I promise you no lights getting out. So you are invisible. Communication. You want to have, obviously cell phones. One of the first services that is going to come back online in a shift situation is going to be cell phones, because first responders use them to communicate. And so you want to have a cell phone, you want to have a way to charge it, something like a solar generator, portable solar generator. But, maybe a portable radio, a crank flashlight radio. And then also on the communication, if you do not live by yourself and you have other people there, you want to keep your conversations quiet. Because just like the light broadcasts your position at nighttime, noise will broadcast your position as well. So you just want to make sure you're quiet. Defense. In a shift situation, the one advantage that you have, whether you live alone and you're elderly, whether it's a family of 4 and everybody is trained to use a gun, a firearm, no matter what the case is, the one advantage that you have is if somebody tries to get into your apartment or your farmhouse, you know the layout of the place. You know exactly what's inside. These people coming in have no clue. And so you have to be very creative. Now, if you have firearms and you're proficient with firearms, when it hits the fan, you can, in theory, let's say, for example, it hit the fan, and the main entry point in, let's say I'm in an apartment, is the front door, right? Obviously. So what I would do in that situation is I'm moving pieces of furniture that I'm not going to be using, and I'm going to position that furniture in such a way that if the door is kicked in somehow, because I'm going to have it reinforced, we'll get to that in a minute. If somehow the door is breached and the people come in, somebody comes in, or maybe 2 of them or whatever, now they are going to run into furniture, and I'm forcing them to take a certain path. In military strategy, this is called a kill box. So if you have firearms, let's say you're a firearm guy out there, and you have a shotgun or you have an AK-47, for example. If the door's reinforced, you're going to hear someone try to break it down. It's going to take a couple of minutes, okay? So if you have the furniture in a, specific pattern, when this individual kicks the door in, or group of individuals, and they come in, they have no idea what they're walking into. And so now they are forced to walk a certain path through, let's say, the living room or whatever is on the other side of the front door. And you're already in position with your AK-47. So you're going to rein the pain, son, and you are going to be able to take out multiple assailants. Now, if you're not proficient with firearms, this is a problem. Now, you can use things like taser guns, bear spray, wasp spray works incredibly well, but this is temporary stuff. This is really only meant to hit your attackers long enough for you to get away. And so if you're out there and you do not yet have a firearm, I would strongly encourage you to at least get one. Go to a local gun store. You're going to overpay a little bit right now because there's a huge blitz on firearms and weapons. But tell them you need something basic. Take it to a gun range a few times. At least know the basics, if at all possible. Again, tasers, pepper spray, things like that, but they're temporary. It's just so you can get away. But yeah, that's the defensive setup for me. And we'll get into a little more complicated stuff here in a moment. Hygiene products. So deodorant, toothpaste, you guys know what hygiene stuff is, right? I'm pretty sure all of you do. Even the bearded guys, man. I got my own bearded soap and stuff like that, actually. Duke Cannon, by the way. They're not paying me a dime, but they are an awesome company. I buy Duke Cannon stuff for my beard. But yeah, hygiene. Have enough for 90 days on hand. You know, have enough mouthwash. Have enough alcohol and things like that. Tools. Tools is something that a lot of preppers sleep on, but you really need it. So if I'm going into a vault for 90 days, I'm taking the basics. I'm going to take a good wrench. I'm going to take a good multi-tool. I'm going to take 3 or 4 rolls of good duct tape. I'm taking plenty of nails, a hammer or two. I'm taking some extra lumber that's been cut. Now, if you're in a bigger house or you have a basement or something, you can store this stuff over in the corner. It's not going to take up tons of room, but you'll be glad you have it if it comes down to that. Door security bar. Okay, let's talk about the door for a minute, okay? Because this is going to be the main point of entry. Just like on a bunker. Atlas bunkers is my favorite. And again, I'll do a video here at some point. But they put a submarine grade door on their bunkers. And anything short of a 50 cal gun is not penetrating the door. Now, obviously, if you live in an apartment or a townhouse, you're not going to be able to, probably not going to want to put a submarine door, you know what I'm saying, up. But you want to secure the door as much as possible. So the first thing is the door plate where the latch goes in, that's built into the wall. They normally have 3/4 of an inch screws that hold the door plate or the wall plate in. Take those out and put 3-inch screws in. That's going to make a huge difference right off the bat. It's going to make your door a lot harder to kick in. Make sure you have a deadbolt lock. If you don't have a deadbolt lock, they're not expensive. They're like $20. They're not hard to put in. If you have a landlord, run it by your landlord first. You know, maybe say, hey, if I buy it, will you put it in? You know, so I'm not tearing anything up. A lot of times landlords, decent ones, will go ahead and put that in for you. And what I'm talking about with a door security bar, it sounds fancy, but it's basically a 2x4 that is going to be nailed up above the door handle. You can nail it up. You can actually build braces to secure it in on the door frame, or you can just nail it up if you're in a pinch and in a hurry. Again, going to be incredibly hard to kick that door in. Now, if somebody knows what they're doing, they can still kick it in. It's going to take several minutes. And that's what I was telling you about the kill box earlier. If you hear someone trying to kick your door in and you have firearms and you have everything set up and ready to go, they're walking into a hail of bullets. Or as we say, what do you guys say? Freedom seeds? Yeah. 3-inch screws. Okay. Reinforce your windows. Make sure that they lock well. If you're on the first floor, this is where the extra lumber comes in. You're going to want to, you've seen the, again, with the zombies, you've seen the old zombie movies where the zombies are coming in and, you know, they're nailing the boards up over the windows. No, I don't think we have to worry about zombies anytime soon. But after 2 or 3 days of not eating, the residents of downtown Atlanta may resemble zombies. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to be yelling brains or anything, but they are going to try and kick your windows in if you're on a bottom floor, especially if they know that you have food. So you want to go ahead and nail this stuff up. And it makes it extremely hard for them to get to you. Again, that's the entire idea behind bunkering yourself in. And finally, a window garden. There are several plants out there that produce edible food that grow with very little light. You can do a window garden. You can grow stuff in as little as like 7 to 10 days. Research it. I know there are some greens that you can grow. Probably not too tasty, but they will help you survive if it comes down to it. Now, what are the advantages of rural versus urban? Okay, so if you live out in the country, you have obvious advantages. You can grow a huge garden, right? A rain catchment system or a water catchment system is a big plus. You don't have that constant worry for water. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do that give you an advantage. However, there is also an advantage to living in a city, living in a small apartment, believe it or not. If you live in a farmhouse and you have 5 acres of land, that may seem incredible. But now you have a huge perimeter that you have to watch at all times. And you have to have enough people, you have to have enough able bodies to patrol that perimeter. You cannot see, the entire lay of the land. You can't see the entire perimeter at all times. And that's a huge problem. That's a security threat. Whereas if you live in a city in a small apartment, let's say you have a door and 3 windows in your apartment, you can very much so control who's coming in and out, especially if you've secured the door, you have the windows secured. You can really push it to the point where the only way somebody's getting in is through the front door. So you only have one thing to keep an eye on, and then you reinforce it, and if they try and come through, you make them pay. So that's the advantages there. Let me see. Now, in an urban environment, again, it's like a doomsday bunker. That's the mindset that you want to have. Again, with the sheet of paper, what do you need for you and your family to survive inside of an apartment without going outside for 90 days? On the flip side, if you're out in the country and you have a bigger house, what I would suggest doing and what we do is, again, with the war strategy, this is more of a castle strategy, but castles used to have a keep in the middle of the castle. And nowadays it's called a safe room. The White House even has one. You want something central in your house where there are not a lot of windows, and you want to keep a bulk of your firearms in this area. This is if your perimeter is breached, this is your fallback area for you folks out in the country. So in other words, let's say you have a family of 4 and you're out tending the garden, you know what I'm saying, you got a 357 with you, but you see movement off in the distance, the woods, and you understand, okay, this is a threat. So immediately you can signal your family, and your family knows exactly where to go. They go to this, what I call the keep or the safe room, which is at the center of the house. And you want to work this up. This room, you want it to, if at all possible, only have one door, one entryway, similar to the apartment. And so now you can go out and hopefully neutralize the threat and also know that your family is safe. You want to keep a bulk of your rations in this room as well. Anything valuable, of course, your family, your firearms, your rations, food and water, you want to try and keep centralized. Because if they breach your property or even your house, it's going to take them longer to find this. And then once they find it, there's only one way in and one way out. So anyway, that's the thinking behind that. Finally, supply catch. If you live in a rural area, you need to put a supply catch somewhere. And for you newer preppers, this just means that you are burying, and they actually sell the supply catch canisters online. You can pick them up, I think, on Amazon and eBay. But what I personally use is a large ammo box. You can pick up a large ammo box, like I think it would be a 50 cal, much cheaper, and it's going to do the same thing. Now, you're going to put your supplies in a waterproof bag, like a contractor bag, like we were talking about earlier. You're going to tie it up and you're going to put it in the ammo can, and then you're going to bury the ammo can. You're going to bury the supply catch in a place where only you know about it. And what I would do, what I would suggest, and what a lot of us do here in the South as extra precaution, is if you're burying it, let's say you're burying it at the edge of your property at the perimeter, and it's obviously a metal ammo can, take a couple of fistfuls of small nails and just scatter them. Just pitch them out there in the general area. Because believe it or not, people will, if they know what they're doing, preppers, they will come with a metal detector to try and find your supply catch. And this will drive them insane. They will start getting hits all over the place. And it just doesn't make it worth their time. The idea behind a supply catch is if you have to abandon your home and you have to basically run for it, now you have whatever is in your supply catch. Maybe you have a couple of tarps. Maybe you have, a pistol with a clip or two of ammunition. Maybe you have a few MREs or some freeze-dried food there and some water, or maybe a life straw, something like that. Just enough to keep you going at that point. So that's something to think about. Now, if you're in a city, you don't really want to go downtown to Central Park and start digging a hole and everybody's like, what's this cat doing? No. If you're in a city, you want to pick, what I suggest is pick a storage building unit. Rent the smallest possible one that you can. You don't need a large one, okay? And you're going to stock it with supplies. The supplies that go in this storage unit are supplies that you can live without. These are all extra items. But at the same time, if you have to, for whatever reason, leave your apartment and make a run for it, now you have a second set of supplies. You don't necessarily need 90 days of food and 90 days water at your apartment and at the storage unit. Maybe you just got a week's worth of food and water there, and a water filtration system, again, like a life straw or something like that. Maybe you have a good knife and a tent and a couple of tarps just to get you going, right? So just something to think about there. Make sure it's a spot where you don't want it 10 miles away to where you're going to have to drive across the city. Okay, you want it fairly close to your home. That way you can get to it on foot in a city if it comes down to it. But at the same time, you don't want to put things that are so valuable in it that if they are lost to you, it's over. You want to keep your most valuable stuff in your home, in your bunker. And that's pretty much it. I know the veteran preppers on here are going to leave a lot of comments, and that's fine. I hope they do, because everybody does it different. I just personally approach it like a doomsday bunker. Finally, I would just add that you need to have a bug out plan. I understand some people out there are disabled or elderly, or they, for whatever reason, they just can't bug out. But you need to at least have a bug out bag ready, just something to grab and go. If you are elderly and somebody gets inside your apartment for whatever reason and you're completely vulnerable, you want to have pepper spray or wasp spray or something. Put it in their eyes. That'll put them on the ground for a few minutes. Grab your bag and go. And go from there, as best you can, to a neighbor's house maybe, or something. You know what I'm saying. You know your neighborhood better than the looters. There's a very good chance of that. So go to a familiar face's home, and with any luck, they'll take you in and hold you there until it's all over. But the next video tomorrow, we're going to be talking about bug out plans and bug out bags and how to survive off grid. Thank you, folks, for all the likes and subscribes. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please join Prepper Nation and become one of us crazies by subscribing. Thank you very much, and God bless.